Hey everybody, and welcome back here to Bulletproof Selling. My name is Sean Rhodes, the Chief Sales Sergeant of Bulletproof Selling and author of the book Bulletproof Selling, a guide for systemizing sales on the battlefield of business. Now, here at Bulletproof Selling, we are bringing the lessons from actual battlefields into the battlefield of business, because if you're in sales, you are in a fight. You're not in a fight against your prospects, but you are in a fight with everything else that was on their schedule before you make your calls, before you get out there to their job sites and make a visit, before you step into those buyer meetings. They've got a lot of priorities. You are one amongst them. And if you cannot prove that you are dedicated to helping them achieve their goals, to helping them achieve their missions, then you are relying on hope. So here at Bulletproof Selling, when we say that hope is not a sales strategy, we really believe it, because I've seen myself as a former war correspondent, as a U.S. Marine on battlefields around the world, that hope does not lead to success. And when I got into sales, discovered that actually played out exactly along those lines. The salespeople that I saw that relied on hope didn't make their number. When I was relying on hope, good things didn't happen for me in this career. So here at Bulletproof Selling, since day one, we've been reaching out to find the people that understand the value of what it means to remove hope from how you sell. So over the last few years that we've been running this effort, this mission, we've been able to bring on Hall of Fame speakers, best-selling authors, people that are out there in the field guiding sales teams around the world for how they can better use process, systems, the things that kept us alive on the battlefield, and the things that great salespeople use as well. Now, often when I'm getting hired to go into a company to help them with their sales strategy, they'll say, Sean, we believe in efficiency, we believe in operational excellence, but if we can't fill the top of our pipeline, of our funnel, if we can't get top line revenue in here, it doesn't matter how efficient we are on the factory floor, on the construction site, because, hey, we're not going to have money to keep the lights on. So today's guest is actually an expert in helping us understand, one, the value of the strategic efforts in sales, which is how do we make sure that we are increasing top line revenue. But he's also going to help us understand something that a lot of salespeople step into this career with, which are assumptions. Now, on the battlefield, assumptions will get you really hurt, because if you assume that your enemy is going to bank left and they choose to bank right, a lot of nasty downstream effects are going to happen there. And in sales, it's the same way. If we assume that we're walking into a company that's exactly like the last 4 companies that we've sold to, we're going to step in there knowing that, hey, the prospect is probably going to be concerned with this, and they're probably going to have a budget of this. Well, those assumptions are going to be shattered real quick when your deal stalls, when those prospects actually have different priorities than the previous ones. And it's all because you didn't take the time to ask, are my assumptions going to play out? So welcoming here to Bulletproof Selling for the first time to help us understand, one, the value of continuously increasing top line revenue, the top of that funnel, and how do we challenge sales assumptions. Let me welcome to the show, Steve Gielda. Steve, welcome to Bulletproof Selling, sir.
Well, Sean, thank you so much for having me as your guest, and thank you for your service.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Steve. So I'm more excited to hear about your service, because you've been helping salespeople for a while. You have a book out, Ignite Your Sales Strategy. Talk to us a little bit about your sales journey. What got you in here? I know you've been in sales for a long time. I want to hear about how you landed in the position now where you're helping people challenge their assumptions in sales.
Well, yeah, thank you for that. I appreciate it. It's great to be with y'all, with all of your listeners. My sales career started off like probably a lot of your listeners, right out of college, straight into a sales career. And from a sales career into sales management, into vice presidents of sales for a company called Lanier Worldwide. But after spending about 10 years there, I got into the sales performance consulting space. And I started doing a lot of win-loss analyses. I wanted to know really and understand, what is it that makes the top performers and the average performers just average performers. And we started really doing a lot of work in that particular area that someone says, what differentiates these guys? And you kind of hit it on the head when you started talking a little bit about, it's both about the efficiency of what they do and the effectiveness of what they do. And I think when salespeople can start to unpack that a little bit more and start really doing things that repeat success, because they become a student of the game, they're more likely to have greater success, greater revenue growth. And that comes from just doing the right things on a more regular basis.
And the companies that you're working with now, the sales teams that you're being hired to go in there and help, are they suffering from just needing to increase overall sales? Are they suffering from deals stalling through the pipeline? Is there any particular problem that you see the folks you're working with really suffer at that gets you in the door that says, hey, we need some Steve in our life?
I think it's a little bit of all of that, but I would kind of say here in this, going into this 2023 fiscal year, calendar year, and you start looking at this post-pandemic marketplace that we find organizations in today, are we going to be hitting a recession? Are we not going to be hitting a recession? These are questions that both salespeople as well as their customers are kind of wondering about. And so what we started really investigating through some more win-loss analysis is what's causing opportunities to stall. So the work that we're doing with organizations today is to help their sales pipeline, their sales funnel, maintain a consistent momentum, prevent or reduce the likelihood of those opportunities stalling. And the research that we did for our book, Ignite Your Sales Strategy, says that 74% of all opportunities stall. Now, we asked the question, why? 92% of the people that responded to the survey blamed the customer in one way or another.
It's always their fault. If they would just buy my stuff, we wouldn't have this problem. Yeah.
So they're saying, the customer had a reorg. The customer is establishing the budget. The customer hasn't gotten me in front of the right people. It starts off the customer. Well, we kind of started unpacking that, where the sales representatives were blaming the customer as to the reasons why the opportunities were stalling, and just started kind of asking questions that challenged their assumptions. A simple question such as, what is the decision criteria this customer is using to compare you against the competition? Criteria other than price. Or what are the business metrics this department or this company is trying to improve in the next 12 months? How can your solutions help? Or what strategies have you taken to neutralize those detractors or those adversaries inside the account that don't support your ideas? All of a sudden, sales representatives didn't have the answers to these fundamental questions. And we then came back and asked the question again, could this opportunity have stalled because you don't understand the metrics to which this client is trying to improve in the next 12 months? If you knew that, could you generate some urgency to get them to move now? Yeah. So it's that kind of stuff.
That's brilliant. The thing in the military we discovered early on at the personal level and at the strategic level was the idea of mission. And it wasn't just having a mission that we were concerned with, but really being concerned with the mission of the people that we were there to help. Because if we could get on their side, suddenly they were giving us resources, support. Sure. They weren't stonewalling us. We were getting all the intelligence we could handle. Once they understood, hey, it's not just about me getting what I want. It's about me helping you get what you want. We find in sales, mission is just as critical. I mean, every salesperson's got a mission, of course. They're trying to make X number of activity and outreach a day to get X number of commissions so they can support their lifestyle, their family, their generational wealth, whatever their goals are. But if we're only showing up to a sales call concerned with me accomplishing the sale, I'm not concerned about my prospect's mission. Why wouldn't a deal stall as the result of that? Because now I'm being evaluated on price. I'm being evaluated on delivery timeline, not how can I help you achieve your goals. So where do you see salespeople then, Steve, relying on hope that results in a deal stalling? Is there one overarching assumption that they're showing up with that's really causing a stalled deal?
I think, based upon our research, I think that the number one reason that opportunities are stalling, you're hitting it on the head. They rely on hope, but hope around what? And what it is they hope that their solution can help their customer do a better job of serving their customers. Okay. So
without explaining it, without building the bridge, just saying, here it is. Why don't you understand the value of it?
Why don't you get it? Yeah. Why don't you get it? Everybody else does, right?
Yeah.
But one of the things we always tell our salespeople, and you probably do this in your keynotes, is one of the things I love doing when I'm doing a keynote is I tell people, stop selling fill in the blank. Okay. Yeah. They're selling financial services. Stop selling financial services. If you're selling pizzas in the grocery store because you work for a pizza manufacturer, a frozen food manufacturer, stop selling them. Start selling the value of what that particular product does to that customer.
Yes.
So that customer is not just trying to sell more pizzas. That customer is trying to improve margins in a particular category. That customer is trying to increase revenues or to attract a different type of buyer. But if you don't know that they're trying to attract a different type of buyer, or if you don't understand that their real goal is to try to increase margins around frozen foods, you can't align your product to that. They have no need to talk to you. So
you're not helping them achieve their goals. Yeah.
Correct. One of the things you'll see on our website is we always say the profits and revenues of our company are merely an economic outcome of doing what's right for our customers. Think about that for a moment. If you can help your customers succeed in whatever it is that they're trying to achieve, higher margins, higher revenue growth, quicker sales, whatever it might be, you can demonstrate how your solutions help your customers succeed in doing what they are trying to do for their customers. You're a win. You're a win, because everybody's trying to serve their customers better. Does your product help your customer serve their customer better? Can you communicate that in a way that's a meaningful way? So that's where I think people fall on hope, is they kind of assume that people can understand it and they hope that they get it.
Yeah, but without showing up with the answer already prepared. And this is something that the busier our lives get, the more we need that explained to us out of the gate. I don't have the time to try to build the bridge on my own. I need you to tell me how what you're trying to offer me is going to help me achieve my goals. And if you don't understand my goals, you're selling a commodity that I will shop you on price for. And that's just anybody's mindset. So we're going to jump right into the systems build here, Steve, because I'd like to help all the salespeople listening to this systemize their way out of a stalled deal. And my guess is it's going to involve some stuff that happens before we find ourselves stalled. So we're definitely going to hop into that. But when we talk about systems builds, just like in the military, if I'm getting ready to stack up outside of a house in Fallujah, we're going to kick down the door. We're going to hop in there and get some bad guys. I want to make sure that I can rely on systems, because I know that as soon as I get on the battlefield or in the field with my prospects, things are going to shift. They're going to change. No prospect conversation can be mapped exactly how it's going to flow, because we're dealing with an independent human being here. So I want to make sure that I can remove hope from how I sell by using a system that I can fall back on. So when I get that weird objection, or I get that prospect saying, well, I've had a bad experience with your company before, I can then have a system that helps me navigate that. So I'm not trying to hope that I think of the right thing to say. So when we talk about using systems to just remove hope entirely, we're trimming hope away from our sales strategy. So here at Bulletproof Selling, we use this acronym TRIM. We're trimming hope. So that's our systems build. The T in TRIM is the trigger element. So if I'm trying to systemize my way out of a stalled deal, where do I pull this system off the shelf to know when to use it? When in the sales cycle do I want to start preparing so that I don't really end up with a stalled deal in the first place? Is it when I'm researching my ICP? Is it when I'm researching an individual prospect? Is it when I'm on the phone? Where do you recommend I pull this off the shelf so I don't end up in a stalled deal in the first place?
Right. Well, I think that before I talk to you about the systems, I think any system will fail with poor intelligence. So just like in the military, you need to make sure that the intelligence that you're receiving is in fact useful intelligence for you. And sometimes that intelligence needs to be validated. Mm-hmm. But when we're talking about trying to prevent stalled opportunities, I think, our research shows there's 5 areas, but I'm going to talk to you specifically about 3 today. But number 1 is we need to make sure that, do we truly understand who are the key influencers involved in the decision-making process? We call this an influencer snapshot. I'm going to talk to you about 3 snapshot tools. We talk about an influencer snapshot. Most salespeople, they've been in sales for any number of 3-4 years, and they're working the same accounts. They kind of have a general idea who has high influence, who has low influence, who do they see as an advocate, who do they see as an adversary. Yep. The question is that the same picture for every opportunity? Most organizations that we work with sell multiple products. Yeah. Are you assuming that the people that were involved in purchasing, making the buying decision to hire you last time, are the same people who are going to be hiring you this time, and they feel the same way about you? That's a dangerous assumption, isn't it? Yeah. So what we do is we would want to map out who has high influence, low influence, who loves you, who doesn't. And we start asking the question to salespeople: how do you know this picture is right? Who are you talking to inside the account that can validate that your understanding of who has high influence, who has low influence, who's an advocate, who's an adversary for this particular opportunity is exactly right? Or we ask the other question: who's your competition speaking to that you're not? If you don't know that, you start falling into this dangerous parts of assumptions. But once you do know that, and say you have it mapped out on high influence, low influence, advocate, adversary, you have everything mapped out. Now the question is what do you need to do to change this picture so you can win?
And I think that's where we're going to jump into the R in TRIM, which is making this thing repeatable. So these are the repeatable steps. Now that I know when to trigger it, which I'm going to confirm I heard right from you, because it's always good to confirm intelligence. Don't assume you know who's influencing this deal. Don't assume you're the only option that they're considering. And what was the third one?
And the third one was don't assume that the individuals to whom are made this last decision are feel the same way about you this time.
Okay, perfect. Love it. All right. So, and now we're moving into the R and trim, which are maybe this could be a longer process, but I want to keep it simple for the purposes of this podcast and this system. What are 3 to 5 steps that I can follow that may have a lot of sub steps underneath them? But if I just do these 3 to 5 things to validate this information, to validate my intelligence, so that I can prevent a stalled deal from happening in the first place, what would those 3 to 5 steps be so this deal has less likelihood of hitting a wall?
Yeah, I think that, the 3 things you do need to kind of look at is, number one is this whole thing around managing the key influencers appropriately. And that all comes down to validating your assumptions of what's currently happening around those key influencers, and then building a proactive plan to neutralize those people that don't support you. Okay. So that's kind of around number one, managing those key influencers. I think the second one is all about challenging our assumptions around what is the decision criteria this customer is using other than price. Mm-hmm. We call this our competitive snapshot. So if you ask a sales representative, why did they lose? Or if you're on the battlefield and you ask the question and it didn't go well, what happened? Everybody's going to have an answer. But the question, as a leader, you have to ask yourself, other than that situation, what else could it have happened? What else could have gone wrong? So we asked sales representative, why did you lose? Sales representative said competitor had a lower price. Okay. Then we sit back and say, other than price, what were the other 3 or 4 decision criteria this customer was using to compare you against competition? Crickets.
Oh, yeah.
Now they'll start, maybe the best of the best will start give us an answer. They'll say, well, it was ease of use of the product. It was availability of the product. We say, terrific. So now it's ease of use, availability, and price. Other than, when you look at those 3, whose criteria is this? Was this Bob's, Mary's, Karen's? Whose criteria was this? Because you told me there were 5 key influencers involved. Do they all believe in the same criteria and ranked in the same way? So the second one is, do we truly understand the decision criteria other than price? Mm-hmm. The customer should compare us against the competition. And finally, the third one takes us right back to our very first topic. And that is, are you assuming that, or have you validated what the business metrics are that they're trying to improve in the next 12 months? And do you know how your solution helps move the needle on those metrics? So again, it's influencers, decision criteria, and business metrics.
And now we've got the trigger, making it repeatable. Now the iron trim is a critical element in the military, which is making our system improvable. Because if we can't improve our system, then it's going to be outdated very quickly. Because, of course, the economy is going to change in sales. We might hit a recession. I hope we don't, but it's a possibility. So I need to make sure that as the world around me changes, my system can change too to keep up with it. So if I'm doing the things that you've already said, I've got my trigger elements. I'm not assuming who's influencing, not assuming I'm the only option they're considering, not assuming they're feeling the same way about me as they did on the last deal. I know what's happening with key decision makers. I know what to do with those who don't support me. And of course, I know their business metrics. I'm doing all that, but yet the world's going to change. So what are the things that I need to be doing on a quarterly, annual, biannual basis to make sure that I'm looking at making this thing better? What do I need to reassess or make sure that I'm keeping up with in data to make sure this thing does stay up to date?
We call each one of these tools that we have a snapshot tool for a reason, because it is a snapshot in time. All right. And if you think that you're gonna build out that snapshot around what the decision criteria is and assume that that's the way it's always going to be until you get this customer contracted, you're kidding yourself. The world's going to change. You have to improve it constantly, because guess what your competition's doing? They're not rolling over because they heard that you showed up. Okay. Mm-hmm. Your competition is still trying to change the perception and the mindset of those customers. They're trying to take your advocates and turn them into your adversaries. You're trying to take that decision criteria that you do so well in, and what they're trying to do is to get that decision criteria listed in their favor.
Yep.
So you have to constantly improve it. I love the eye that you have there in your trim model, because if you don't constantly go back to look at how can I improve this? How can I better align our capabilities to those metrics? How can I better align our solutions to their decision criteria? How can I better strengthen our advocacy? How can I better neutralize those people that don't support us? If I'm not constantly improving, I'm going to find myself that I lost this deal. And your manager's going to ask you, why did you lose? And you're going to come up with an excuse that simply says, well, we lost because of price. And then when you're going to go back and do a win-loss analysis, just like you probably do on the battlefield, you get back and you do a win-loss analysis. What happened here? You're going to find out you didn't either win or lose for the reasons that you think you did.
So do you feel like improving then is really involving that win-loss analysis? So the deals that I do lose, to really take a step back and think, is my system that I am using, are we missing a step? Or am I not placing enough emphasis? Or am I even adhering to this? We know we're supposed to do X, Y, and Z, but we only did X and Z. Y got missed. How do I really conduct that win-loss analysis? And should I do it on lost deals, won deals? How do you recommend we do that?
We recommend doing win-loss on both deals that you win and deals that you lose, okay? And when you lose a deal and you have a good relationship with your customer, you can get all the information that you need. But we do recommend not having the actual salesperson try to conduct their own win or loss analysis. Have somebody else from the organization come in and ask the customer the questions. This is how we do it. We ask a sales representative 5 questions. We ask those same questions to their strongest advocate inside the account. And then we compare answers. So
are they the same? Yeah.
Yeah. And so we'll ask the sales representative, what were the 3 or 4 decision criteria this customer was using to compare you against your competition? They'll give us an answer. They'll say price, ease of use, availability of product, whatever it might be. We'll go back and ask the same question to the customer. What was the decision criteria you were using to compare company A to company B? And they'll give us that criteria. Then we'll ask them to rank it from most important to least important. All right. And now we take that data back to the sales representative. We'll say, listen, the number 1 most important criteria for this customer was post-training support. Right. Where are you going to support them after the sale? That's not even on your list. You said it was ease of use, availability of product, and price. You lost this deal potentially because your competitor talked about post-sale support, how they're going to continue to hold the hand of this customer after they acquire the product. Right. You missed it. You never talked about that. You do it, but you never talked about it. That's just an example of we just asked the same 5 questions. And if you want to access those 5 questions for win-loss analysis, you can just go to our website.
That's actually a great offer. So I'm going to make sure I link people to it, because if we're ever losing a deal and we're not taking the time to figure out why, we're inviting that problem back into our pipeline, back into our lives. So don't just assume that this only happened once. They say in the military, once is an anomaly, twice is a pattern. If it happens more than once, you better be ready for it, because the stakes are high on sales, just like they are on the battlefield. So love this so far. We got TRI. Now we're going to the M in trim, which is measurement. So I need to know, if I'm taking the time, Steve, to go through this process to make sure that I'm adhering to it, that I'm doing my win-loss analysis. That's going to take time away from just outbound activity. So I want to justify it. What am I measuring here to make sure that I am preventing stalled deals and unsticking these deals if I get the chance in the middle of my pipeline? Am I looking at stall rate, length of stall, close, referrals on the tail end? What do you recommend we measure to make sure this thing's working?
Yeah, I think that there's several different metrics that you can look at, but there's 2 metrics that we really kind of highlight in our book. Number 1 is pipeline acceleration. In other words, how long does it take for an opportunity today to move from stage 1 to stage 6? Okay. How many months, how many weeks, how many days, depending upon your sales process. Measure that today. Once you start challenging your assumptions and you start thinking about the influencers and the decision criteria and the business metrics, and you're getting ahead of the game in your sales process doing those things, you will find that we're finding right now in the research that we started looking at is opportunities are moving at a rate of 37% faster. So you're closing revenue faster, 37% rate. The metric that surprised us the most when we started measuring this was first-year annual revenue. Now, this isn't for every company, depending upon what you're selling. But if you if you have a product that you have to sell, and then you have to get the customer to start using it, okay? Because it's not a one-time sale, it's once and done. But now your company is dependent upon them using it. That's where your revenue stream comes in. Call it razor blade, whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's that stream. When companies that have a product that relies upon the utilization of the product after it's sold, we're seeing a 17% increase in revenue there in the first 12 months. Now, we had to unpack that. We said, if we're measuring, we're looking at all the different metrics. Now, all of a sudden, we're seeing the first 12-month revenue increase by 17%. Where's that coming from and why? And the reason it's happening is because earlier in that sales process, you started looking at all the key influencers, and you didn't just sell one person who said yes. You sold the other 5 or 6, and those other 5 or 6 also saw the value. So they started saying, we need to use this product more often. Every time that we're running into this situation, we need to pull this product off the shelf and start using it. Because it's not just one person who saw value in it, it was multiple people that saw value in it. It was all because of how you sold, not just who you sold in terms of one person or what you sold, that particular product. It was how you sold. You got everybody involved, and now everybody sees value in the product. So those are 2 metrics that are really standing out. 37% faster of the throughput in the sales funnel, and a 17% increase in revenue.
And it all comes from positioning your product out of the gate as a solution to their challenges, as a way for them to bridge the gap between where they are and where they want to be, so that when they do get the product, piece of software, widget on the factory floor, whatever that looks like, they already know, hey, this is going to help us achieve our goals. Why wouldn't we do this? Because it's not about doing what the salesperson wanted, who I'm never going to see again. It's about making sure that we've invested in this because we know it's going to help us do better in all the areas that we're concerned about. Steve, great sales system to help keep a goal from getting stuck. I want to make sure that salespeople have a chance to get out there and use it, because I know they're excited to implement it. But how do we get deeper into your world? How do we get a copy of the book? How do we make sure that we're keeping up on the stuff that you have going on, which goes a lot deeper than just challenging assumptions? You have the ability to build storylines across complex sales that help salespeople achieve what we've been talking about this whole podcast. So how do we find out more about that?
Yeah, you can have anybody that's listening now go to our website at igniteselling.com. And if you simply just click that you want a free copy of the book, submit your information to you, and I'll make sure that you get a digital copy, an audio copy of our book at no charge. If you want a hard copy of the book, you can just submit that to me, and somebody on our team will go ahead and get your hard copy of the book. But we'll email you the audio book as well as some of the access to some of the tools.
Amazing offer, Steve. And of course, I know you're active on LinkedIn, so we'll make sure that we're tagging you there as well, so people can connect with you directly, start that conversation. So for all of the salespeople listening right now, hope you take advantage of that offer. That's a pretty incredible thing that Steve just gave to you. And for us here at Bulletproof Selling, make sure that you're catching these archived conversations on our YouTube channel. Subscribe there if you're on YouTube at all, so you can be updated when they are. And of course, when you're listening here, whether you're on the treadmill or you're out there driving to a client job site, make sure that you are giving us a rating, whether you're on Stitcher, Spotify, or iTunes, any of the podcast channels, because that's how other people can find out. We don't have to rely on hope. We can remove it so that we can be bulletproof in how we sell as well. So Steve, thanks so much for joining us today to serve the sales community. Let's get out there and make selling bulletproof.
Thanks so much for the opportunity, Sean. It's great to be with you and your